Hello everyone. Are you a foodie who loves great Chinese food as we do? Well, we have some extraordinary dishes for you in some amazing Chinese restaurants, and we're excited to share them today. Have you ever tasted food so good you feel you've been transported from the daily grind of life to another plane that elevates, invigorates, and leaves you recharged? Where you close your eyes as you take in each bite, savoring all the flavors and wishing the moment would never end. It's now been nearly a year of reviews for Let's Eat Vegas, and we've crisscrossed the Las Vegas Valley and experienced so many Asian restaurants. Over half our full-length reviews are on Asian cuisine, and this is just a sliver of all the places we've tried, as the Valley abounds with Asian food. There are tons of options, and so many of them first-rate. It can be confusing to know where to go, and more importantly, what to order at each place. Today, in no particular order of best or worst, we're going to bring you to what we feel are the top 8 Chinese restaurants in Las Vegas, and what we feel are each of their standout dishes. So buckle up, buckaroos, and hold on to your hats as we take you on a whirlwind journey far and wide across the Vegas Valley. Okay, let's begin in Chinatown proper with SK Seafood. It's one of the most popular Chinese restaurants, not even 10 minutes from the Strip, and packed every day from opening to closing. There are 2 dishes here you shouldn't miss. The first is a Kung Pao chicken. It is so darn good. It takes me back to my childhood. I was lucky enough to have dined many times at the great Madame Wu's in Hollywood. Sylvia Wu set the standard for this dish, and she was a hard act to follow. But SK, one of the few restaurants I've found where it's every bit as good as Madame Wu's Kung Pao chicken. You have to try this dish. Trust me, there's so much going on and the flavors are intense. The sauce is slightly spicy and so rich. The burnt, charred flavor of the roasted chilies permeate this dish, taking it to another level. The chicken has an indescribable and magical flavor, as well as texture that transcends words. I love the roasted bell peppers, Spanish onions, and crunchy peanuts. Though you can get this dish at almost any Chinese restaurant, nobody makes it as well as SK Seafood. The other dish, simply not to be missed at SK, is the salt and pepper pork chops. This is one of my favorite dishes ever. As you all know, I love anything fried, and these pork chops have so much going on with a great crispy texture. They take you down to Flavor Town. I adore the crispy, crunchy coating on the breading of these pork chops. Along with the coarse ground salt and cracked peppercorns, it's magic. Bits of jalapenos and chopped green onions impart just the perfect amount of spice, and the almost acerbic flavor is intoxicating. There isn't even the slightest hint of grease to be found, just crisp, clean flavors that you'll be thinking about days later. Again, this is a dish you'll find at nearly every Chinese restaurant in the Valley, but you won't find a better rendition than this one. This dish is a 10 out of 10. Next on our list is a new shining star, Lucky Noodle, with the highest Yelp rating of any Chinese restaurant in Vegas. It's a few minutes west of Chinatown proper, but well worth the trip. So many excellent dishes from which to choose. But we narrowed it down to our 2 favorites. The first is the Taiwanese fried chicken. Though it may not look as good as it tastes, it's unlikely to win a beauty contest. But it's so delicious. It's a must try. They tell me this is the most popular dish they serve, and after one bite, I can see why. The chicken is so moist and juicy, and the taste is just sensational. Not your ordinary salt and pepper fried chicken. You'll be pining for it days later. There's so much going on here, and it's very unusual. There was this place my family loved when I was a kid called the Paddock. They were famous for their fried chicken. My mother and I would sit and eat it and try to figure out the secret ingredient that made it so good. It's the same unusual flavor profile this wonderful chicken has. Perhaps a little Chinese 5-spice and cinnamon? I know these spices might be hard to imagine being part of a recipe for fried chicken, but this chicken is so addicting. I wish my mom were here to taste it. She would absolutely have loved it, and so will you. Don't miss it. The second dish from Lucky Noodle is comfort food at its finest. Soothing, warm, and made with love. I tried to pronounce it, but I'm afraid I'd hurt myself. So I'll just get right to the description. a very complex mixture of finely chopped pork and fermented tofu that's seasoned to perfection, served over delightful homemade noodles. The chef here has over 30 years of noodle making in Taiwan. You can tell right away that these noodles are different than any others you'll ever taste. They remind me of the ones my Italian Nonna made for her soups, much more delicate and rough around the edges than most tougher noodles one will find in most noodle houses. Almost a knife-cut texture, and not as pulled as most are in Vegas. The scallions offer a subtle element and texture to the dish. The final surprise here is the sliced cucumber. Where the scallions were subtle, the freshness and texture of the cucumbers were anything but, adding yet another layer to an already amazing dish. At first, I didn't know what to make of this, but when eaten together with the rest of the elements on the plate, it was pure magic. This is a standout dish in both texture and flavor. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and well worth a place on our list. The next spot on our list is literally right across the street from SK Seafood, called BBQ King. It's kind of an odd place, somewhat uninviting at times, with a dining area which, while very clean, is also exceedingly cold and downright sterile. It makes the typical hospital operating room seem warm and fuzzy in comparison. But they have a number of excellent dishes, and one made our list, the sweet and sour chicken. This is probably one of America's favorite Chinese dishes. Here, it's definitely ours. It's just as I remembered it as a kid from my dad's travels from Chinatown in Los Angeles. Some places make it too rich because it's fried in a heavy batter, but here, it's perfect. The coating is light and airy, crispy, and the pineapple, onions, and green peppers add just wonderful freshness. I can't get enough of this dish. It's as good as any sweet and sour chicken anywhere in Chinatown or anywhere I've ever eaten it before. Don't miss it. Now, let's head a little south and west to what's fast emerging as an area locals are calling our second Chinatown. Seemingly overnight, a host of excellent Chinese restaurants have cropped up about 5 to 10 minutes west and south of Chinatown proper.
Hey sailor, care to buy a fat girl a drink?
Rainbow Kitchen is one of those restaurants. And while it had many excellent dishes, this one dish in particular was outstanding. The spicy house chicken. One bite and time and space cease to exist, and you feel propelled to an alternate dimension. This is perhaps one of the best chicken dishes I've ever tasted anywhere in any Chinese restaurant. It's got the depth of flavor that any spicy chicken dish should have, but surpasses it by a long shot in the taste department. Look at this beautiful deep red velveted chicken, stir-fried to perfection, with Szechuan peppercorns and spicy red chilies. I can't even begin to guess what all else is in this spectacular dish that makes it so amazing and sets it apart from anything I've ever tasted, because it's so well balanced. No one spice stands out. It's not crazy spicy, just enough to wake up all your senses and make you wonder why you've never eaten anything quite like this dish before. The unique flavor of this recipe is unrivaled and a must-have. Now to a local favorite, smack in the center of Chinatown, called Taiwan Deli. Coming here is like entering another world, one in which you'll find a long-lost aunt. She insists you call her Auntie Bowman. She's warm and welcoming, not to mention an amazing cook, preparing foods you'll love. Nearly every dish we had here could have made the list, but we've narrowed it down to 2. The first is their beef rolls. Packed with at least twice the beef of any other restaurant and extraordinarily flavorful and juicy. This appetizer is a popular starter at many authentic Chinese restaurants everywhere. Here, they go above and beyond your average beef roll. First of all, everything at Taiwan Deli is made from scratch, including the delicious light pastry wrapper. They're flaky in texture and a pleasure to put in your mouth because homemade pastry dissolves differently in your mouth than pre-made. The beef they use is another story. It's obviously prepared with a lot of love and great attention to detail. It's beautifully slow roasted as you've never tasted in your life. Look how packed with beef these are, almost the size of my arm. There's also that amazing taste of Taiwan seasoning, similar to a Chinese 5-spice. cinnamon, allspice, and ginger in the background of the beef. An umami lover's dream come true. Amazing. I find myself craving them all the time. Do yourself a favor and order this dish. The second dish is a Taiwanese rice wrap with pork. What a memorable dish. There's pork on the inside in the form of this wonderful, what they call floss. It looks like a cross between spun glass and cotton candy and tastes like a wonderful umami bomb. They give you more to dip in, and if nobody were looking, I'd eat it with a spoon. It's meant to dip the rice wraps into. It's strange and hard to describe. Sweet, not sweet, porky, and yet aromatically light. I've never had anything like these, to be honest, and I'm loving them. It's always fun to be introduced to something new and unusual like this, especially when it's so good. These are the type of snack that the Taiwanese take on picnics. They're a cross between a burrito, a sandwich, and a savory pork sushi, if that makes sense. As with many of the items on the menu, they make a limited number each day, and when they run out, you'll have to come back the next morning. If you're here and lucky enough, make sure to get them before they're all gone. Do yourself a favor and try these. You won't be sorry. Okay, back to our second Chinatown, and you have yet another excellent Chinese restaurant called Taste.
Hey, Sexy, what time do you get off work?
We love so many dishes here, and two of them made today's list. The first is the house special pan-fried noodles. One day in our restaurant, I remember seeing a woman clutching her chest while she looked at me with tears in her eyes. I immediately ran out to her table and asked her, "Is everything all right?" To which she responded, "Everything is so good, it made me cry." Well, after tasting this house special pan-fried noodles, I know how she felt. Just one bite, and it brought a tear to my eyes. I've had this dish my whole life, and always liked it, but none have compared to the version I had in my teens at the Chinese Tea House in Torrance, California, made by Rose Song, one of the greatest Chinese chefs I've ever known until now. The sauce is one of those sauces that I couldn't tell you what's in it because it was so perfectly balanced. I'm sure it had soy and oyster sauce, garlic and sesame oil, but one taste and I'm pleasurably overwhelmed and already planning my next trip back for more. As you can see, there's so much going on in this dish. Carrots, bok choy, huge fresh prawns, velveted chicken, beef, broccoli, mushrooms, onions. The noodles are so crunchy, even with this massive amount of protein on top. The dish is only $18, and it's a bargain compared to most places nowadays. This portion is enormous, and tastes even better than it looks. I've had so many places disappoint me with their crispy noodles that I almost stopped ordering it, but my faith has now been renewed. My favorite thing about these crispy noodles is how it's like eating two different dishes. At first, there are these heavenly crispy noodle haystacks. Then the sauce envelops them, and slowly they relax and turn into sumptuous saucy noodles that melt in your mouth. I've been thinking about this dish ever since I had it. It could be the best Chinese dish you have all year. The second taste dish on our list is the salt and pepper fish fillet. Imagine the best, lightest, battered fish and chips with the freshest caught sole available, and that's what you have here. You can see there's no greasy mess, just a perfectly delicate coating that's lighter than air. We joked about bringing some of our homemade tartar sauce and vinegar the next time we had a craving for good old English fish and chips. These beautiful pieces of sole are seasoned with sea salt and black peppercorns, then topped with jalapenos and crushed red peppers, then lovingly adorned with green garlic chives, green onions, and of course, fresh toasted garlic. They don't serve them with any sauce. Honestly, they don't need any. But with the addition of their hot Chinese mustard, they are over the top good. I bet these would also be great with sweet and sour sauce to dunk them in. Anyway, this was a fantastic dish, and not to be overlooked. Our next stop on this sumptuous food tour is on South Las Vegas Boulevard, but well south of the Strip, within a hotel and casino. It's a bit off the beaten path, yes, but so very worth it. Coronado Cafe at South Point Hotel and Casino. Sometimes you have to ask for their Chinese menu, so make sure to do so if none is provided when you're first seated. As with most people, honey walnut shrimp is one of our favorite Chinese dishes. But while this dish is now ubiquitous, many are a huge disappointment. Not so at the Coronado Cafe. First of all, look how huge the prawns are. And the sauce, it's gold. It's honestly one of the best I've ever tasted. So far, our search for the perfect honey walnut shrimp reminds me of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Sometimes the sauce is too sweet, others not sweet enough. But this one is just right. The perfect amount of honey, sweetened condensed milk, and mayo. A masterful balancing act. The shrimp are crispy without being at all greasy. Their texture is textbook perfect. Crunchy enough to hold up to the sauce without getting soggy. I was so shocked to see diced melons underneath. We were almost taken aback. But it works. It reminds me of a dish from the early 70s or 80s. And this surprise element, wow, it blends so well with the rich sweet honey walnut sauce. The mixture is astonishingly good. These walnuts are a work of art, so wonderfully candied that they glisten. I could eat a whole bowl of these. I'm feeling a little melancholy though, knowing at some point we'll finish and there'll be no more shrimp. This is such an incredible version of this dish. I don't want it to end. You must try this. No ifs or buts. A second dish you need to try at Coronado Cafe is the sweet and sour pork. By far, one of the best renditions of this recipe I've ever tasted. It reminded me of a lost dish you never really see anymore in a Chinese menu, pressed duck, my all-time favorite dish as a kid. The pork was so crispy, and the skin on it was like the best crackling you'll ever taste in your life. Crunchy and mouth-wateringly delicious. I know it looks great here, but believe me, it's even better than it looks, and you have to try this. I don't know how they got this pork so crispy, but it's amazing. The flavor reminds me of duck, the absolute best tasting duck you can imagine. The sauce is stupid good, sweet, tart, and savory all at the same time, with hints of plum and ginger. The pineapple mixed in and bell peppers are also great, and there's not too many of them, so they're not just here as a filler as we find nowadays in many restaurants trying to keep up with rising costs. This is a dish you won't find prepared this perfectly in almost any Chinese restaurant anywhere in any Chinatown. Just one bite and it takes you back to your first time trying Chinese food as a kid and falling in love with it. Remember the first time you tasted sweet and sour sauce? This will give you a new barometer to compare it to and sets the bar very high. Okay, I know this may sound like hyperbole, but I'm totally serious when I tell you just how great this dish is, and you must try it. Earlier, we spoke about pressed duck and how it's rarely seen anymore. Well, we found it right here in Vegas at a fantastic Chinese restaurant about 10 minutes east of the Strip called Amlee Chinese Cuisine. While once uber popular, pressed duck has slipped away, existing only in our memories, except here, where this wonderful dish lives once more. At Amlee, it's called crispy duck, and I was so excited to find it. This dish was thought to have first appeared in the 17th century in Canton and became very popular all over China. Talk about a throwback to the 70s and 80s. This was my all-time favorite Chinese dish as a kid, and I was, and still am, obsessed with it. I've been seeking out pressed duck for the last 20 years, asking people on food blogs if they knew where I could find it, without success. Most people don't even remember what it is anymore, and the ones who do beg me to let them know if I ever find it, and to tell them where, since they're equally as obsessed as I am. This iconic dish was the embodiment of the 1970s and 80s Chinese cuisine, and somehow it just vanished into thin air. It's one of the hardest things to make, and maybe that's why it disappeared. It's extremely labor intensive, crispy on the outside with crunchy ground almonds and a magnificent batter that coats and protects the soft, moist interior and keeps all that ducky goodness preserved and delicious. They serve it with a savory light gravy that has a magnificent flavor. I remember this dish being served one of two ways. It can have the sweet and sour sauce or a savory one. I love it either way. Here they have a great sweet and sour sauce you can ask for on the side. I added a little of the sweet and sour to my duck, and I just love the contrast of it with the savory gravy. It's a symphony of flavors dancing on my palate and a wonderful trip down memory lane. Oh my God, if you remember this dish, you have to come here if for no other reason. It's as good as any I've ever had. Another blast from the past here at Amlee is the next dish on our list, egg foo young. It's an old-fashioned dish that gets harder and harder to find. Back in the day, it was a staple of almost every Chinese restaurant. But now, finding it is very difficult, and when you do find it, it's not always the best version. There are only a handful of places that still make it, and they, well, let's just say, don't do a very good job. They usually taste more like an omelet. At Amlee, one bite of this dish takes me back to the good old days of my youth, when even if you weren't an egg lover, you could fall in love with this dish. This is the combination egg foo young. As you can see, it has bits of char siu pork, shrimp, chicken, and beef mixed in. I think this is a wonderful interpretation of this dish. It's so complex, I couldn't even tell you what's in it, and I can't wait for you to taste it. Wow, it is so flavorful. My umami taste buds are jumping up and down with joy. The gravy here is next level good. Rich, savory with the perfect balance of soy, garlic, and onions. I love the idea of how many things they've managed to combine into the filling. If you miss egg foo young, you're gonna love this. I promise you that you won't be disappointed. It's waiting for you here at Amlee. Finally, let's finish this tour smack dab in the center of our Chinatown, in the ever-popular Shanghai Plaza. This is where you'll find what has become one of the iconic Chinese restaurants in Vegas, China Mama 2. Sadly, the original China Mama on Jones had a fire and closed down. It was rumored it would reopen, but seems less likely these days. Anyway, fortunately, they've opened China Mama 2, and it's a beautiful place with many excellent dishes. Two of them made our list today. The first is the crispy beef. This is probably one of China Mama's most popular dishes, and after one taste, you'll see why. As you look around the restaurant, you'll see it at almost every table. I love the julienne beef that is dipped in just enough cornstarch slurry to make it crunchy and not at all stodgy. It's then fried quickly to give it a fantastic crunch, and topped with a sweet, tangy sauce that's truly remarkable. The carrots in it complete this balancing act, and once you taste it, you'll be back for more, I guarantee you. Though many Chinese restaurants offer their version of this dish, China Mama's is head and tails above the rest. The final dish on our list is China Mama's chow mein. It has large shrimp, chicken, and beef in a velvety rich sauce over noodles. Chow mein has always been one of the most popular Chinese dishes of all time. Mama's chow mein starts off with their fantastic homemade noodles, so perfectly cooked. Not too chewy or soft, they're just right. The sauce here is so rich and perfectly balanced, it's hard to pick out what spices are in it. And that's a mark of a good chef when you can't taste too much of one thing or the other. So perfect with a rich brown umami flavor, savory beefiness with hints of chicken and shrimp coming through, and the green onions with perfect finishing touch to balance out this amazing dish. We're very lucky to have so many places which make excellent chow mein. However, I believe China Mama makes the best chow mein I've ever tasted anywhere. I know that's quite a statement, but it's true, and I've had a lot of chow mein. Overall, a tremendous dish and worth putting on your bucket list. It's always a gamble when you go out to dine. First, figuring out where to go, and then deciding what to order. I hope our video makes it easier for you to navigate Las Vegas's amazing and extensive Chinese food options. Please take advantage of this list we've compiled, and I hope you enjoy our top choices as much as we enjoyed eating them. These are not only the best dishes in Las Vegas, but some are the best dishes we've ever eaten, anywhere, ever. Who knows, maybe you'll see us there?
And don't forget to tell him, Let's Eat Vegas sent you.
I know we're all guilty of watching YouTube videos and not participating. Please like, comment, subscribe, or even become a VIP member. It means a lot to us, and it helps us grow and to bring you more reviews. Until we eat again, bon appetit!